Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining me, especially at lunchtime, which I know is not very easy. I know that in the program says that I am Australia and from Germany, and probably I don't look like a typical German or Australian, and that's very easy. It's because I'm originally from Colombia, and I live for a long time in Australia, and now I'm in Germany working. So a little bit of a mix, but I'm originally from South America. And I think that's what you can definitely see. My topic today is relational aspects of innovation. It is a topic that I've been interested in for many, many years. And during the last, let's say, 5 years, I was lucky enough to have the time in my PhD to research a little bit more on this. So what I'm presenting today is a little bit of findings of my doctoral research and how we're trying to apply that for universities and organizations in an innovation ecosystem. So we are very used to the traditional way of innovation, that we focus on development of new products, new technologies, and these new developments are usually led and championed by individuals. So we have the successful startups, the successful new Apple, the successful new unicorn. And we manage that through individual coaching, mentorship, individual tools, including investment infrastructure. So this successful entrepreneur can develop their own ideas. What I'm trying to do is have a more like a relational view of innovation, understanding innovation not as a product or as a technology itself, but more as a process, and a process based on interactions. So how do we communicate each other, not to launch a new product, but to improve the whole ecosystem and to create opportunities for everyone around. And in that process, that is based on interactions, the important bit is that we can actually manage that strategically. The first question, as I was introduced, is who is in a relationship? And all of us are all the time in a relationship since we've born. And because it's something so common to us, so in our nature, we take it for granted that sometimes things we cannot manage it. I know how to deal with my relationships. I don't have to do anything else. But we actually can, and especially when we're talking about organizations in innovation. So I take here the example of clean technologies. And with clean technologies, I'm including technologies to purify water, purify air, to treat waste, also renewable energies, all these things that can go into these environmental technologies, and how these new technologies are getting implemented in our reality. Specifically, this example is in Australia, and it was a very interesting time because there were so many changes in the government and changes in the overall context, society, technology, that led to different interactions between people. And here, what I would like to point out is that innovation, as we all know, is not easy. It's actually very complex. It involves specialized knowledge not only in technology, but also in investment and how to manage the organizations, in how to communicate this. And also involve people who are they don't have this specialized knowledge, which is general society, that are going to consume this technology. So we have a gap in knowledge that we need to deal with. We're also talking about complexity of the technology itself, or the product that we're talking about, in terms of long-term development, high investment, failures, different entrance to market that make all this, give another layer of complexity. We also have another specialized actors, for example, in the government, that usually are playing a huge role when we're talking about new developments or technologies that are on the edge. And we're talking about long-term commitments. We cannot wait and see that all of a sudden, for example, nanotechnologies will be in our daily life. We need commitment from the developers, from the researchers, from the investors, from the regulation part, and also from the users. So all these things make all this ecosystem a very, very complex, and we don't know sometimes where to start or how to deal with that. So one way that I decided to look at it was from the relational point of view. And relational understood not only in terms of buying and selling, but what's happening with personal communications, with informal interactions, and how that can be managed and can impact innovation. So as I was mentioning, so we have a context that it is uncertain. In the case of clean technologies, for example, we don't know when the governments are going to release new regulations. We don't know what's going to happen after an atomic bomb, an atomic plant explodes. We don't know if the regulation is going to change in the next 2 years, 5 years. And the developers of the technology and the users need to deal with that. Should I buy a new solar panel, or should I wait until the government tells me that it's going to be implemented? Ambiguity. On one hand, we have the government saying, we want innovation, we want to foster, we want to put money in research, development, innovation programs. And on the other hand, they're saying, you cannot use this technology. You cannot use Uber, for example. So these conflicting messages are going to affect the whole process. We also have what I call lock-in, and is the long-term investments. It's very difficult if any investor or any organization start putting money into developing a technology, and then they have to quit, or they have to leave it, or they don't know how long they need to wait until the government releases a new normative. So all those things are in the general context. On the other side, we have the technology. One same artifact, let's say it, can be used in different industries. So how are we going to use it? How are we going to value? Are we going to give that value because it will be more diffuse, or is it getting cheaper with time and then losing its value? But more people are using it. So it's very difficult and very subjective to see when the technology has more value, in which industry is going to be very valued. For example, an analytic technology that can be used in water and that could probably reduce the cost that we pay for water cannot be implemented because of the regulations, but then the food industry take it. So we need to explore new opportunities where the technologies are more valued or more used, or we have more potential applications. So given this context, on the other side we have the individuals that are dealing with or are involved somehow in developing these innovations. And what I found, apart from all the beliefs and characteristics of the interactions, is that it is very important how they perceive time. Do I perceive time as in 3 months when I need to buy my new DVD, my new solar panel? Or do I perceive it as something that will be long-term and I will give it a go to buy something or to invest in a new technology? And how that perception of time will change my interactions with the technology and with the people who are developing the innovation. So given this context and this perception of time, the important factors in an interaction that I found in this research is that there are 2 types of trust There are two types of values, and there are narratives and identity. What do I mean with this? So we have people that are going to be more inclined to assess the benefits based on the outcome. For example, an investor. Do I get into this opportunity of a new technology because I believe it's good for the environment and I believe to have clean water around my area? Or do I invest in that because in 3 months I'm going to have a higher return on investment? So these different perceptions of value are going to influence who is going to be involved and how they're going to be involved. Also, that will influence trust. Do I trust my investor because we have a contract, and in that contract is very well specified that I will give him a technology and he will give me money, and then we are clear? Or do I trust someone, lend my technology, let them try without a contract because they believe in me, they believe in my technology, they believe in environmental values in our world, and let's see what happens. So these types of trust are going to influence a lot how I relate to people, how do we value the innovation, who's involved in the development and use of those technologies. I also found that, narratives are very important. How do we communicate the value of the technology? And also that's linked to the identity. What do I mean with these things? For example, a company has developed, let's say, a device to purify water. This device can be used by the government, in the council, the city council, but could be also used in a cosmetic company and can be also used in agriculture. We're talking about 3 different industries that they have their own way of communication, their own jargon, their own words to express their needs, their values. And individuals developing this innovation needs to be able to understand the different words, the different way of talking to each other in different industries. And that would also depend on if they want to, if the technology will be easily accepted or not. So putting all these things together, one of the main conclusions is that we can use interactions in 2 ways, in a transactional and a transitional way. A transactional way, and first, both of those are needed if we want to have, let's say, a balanced process of innovation. A transactional way will focus more on specific outcomes, short-term benefits, short-term objectives of different companies, different stakeholders that are going to be tangible outcomes. Could be given in terms of market shares, in terms of the technology itself, in terms of efficiency of the process that can be measured. And that will support the development or more collaborations. A transitional way will be those interactions that are more open. They are not looking for a specific interest, but they are able to transmit the knowledge to another industry without expecting a return. The return might come later, but that is not the main objective. And this allows to share knowledge more easily, to translate capacities from one industry to the other, to explore new opportunities, to combine knowledge to develop new technologies, and to create new things without the specific, let's say, boundaries of tangible outcomes that needs to be measured by companies. So this is in a nutshell how we could potentially understand interactions and try to manage them in a way that facilitates the process of development of technology and facilitates the process of nurturing the ecosystem. And some for me, the biggest policy implication of this is that innovation is not enough. Innovation as we understand it, as we know it, is not enough. We need to develop all these soft skills and manage that strategically so the innovation process can happen. So instead of focusing specifically on infrastructure, on building a new science park, in building a new product, a new technology itself, and commercialize and get that into a specific market, we need to focus as well in nurturing the whole ecosystem. How? Teaching people, teaching companies how to deal with uncertainty, how to develop trust strategically. How can they manage their stakeholders in a way that all of them create new opportunities? And how can we do that in a university? So let me go to this. We have tried to develop some tools, some analytical tools that we can apply in organizations as university, so we can start managing our relationships in a strategic way. This is only an example, and this is a very simple metrics on measuring what is the influence of my stakeholders and what is the interest they have in different topics. It could be specifically on technology, it could be on investment process, it could be shared interest, and who is in each square. And in that way, I can identify who is more strategic for me to have a contract, a short-term contract, a short-term project, or to focus on a specific tangible product, or who's more likely to be in an open relationship that can explore with me new opportunities, not necessarily focus on resources, and how can we cooperate in different ways. So the idea is to identify who is in each square and how do I need to move them according to my objectives. And based on that, how do I need to engage with them? Do I need to engage with some that probably have not interest and raise awareness and let them know that there is a technology, there is a value, there is a social impact, there is a social need? Once they know that it is important, how do I move them to make things together? How do I get them into a contract, if that is my objective, or how can I get them into an open conversation that will lead us to probably new opportunities in the future? And also, which support mechanisms do I need for that? Do I need to go into a specific university? Do I need to look for a specific innovation program, supporting program from the government? Can we do it with resources from internal organizations? So the idea is to start identifying what type of relationships do I need, who is interested and who is capable of doing what type of relation, and bring it all together in different strategies for the university. And this is an example of what we do in our research center. I think I didn't mention at the beginning, I am working at the University of Applied Science in Münster in a research center called Science to Business Marketing. And what we're trying to do is research on interactions, university business interactions, and try to translate that into tools so we can actually manage all these soft skills and soft aspects that initially people think we cannot do anything about it, or it is too difficult, or I don't know how to do it. So my research is only an example of the projects that we do. And the important thing is that we're focusing on the interaction. We're valuing that, and we're putting all our view into that to go from a successful individual to an ecosystem of opportunities. And with that, I would like to finish my presentation and open to your questions.
Is it working? Not really, so...
Thanks very much for your presentation. You mentioned tools. What kind of tools are those that you are developing? Are they methods or they are real like software platforms? And if it's the software platforms, are they open source and open for general public use?
At the moment, we don't have any software platforms. We have, let's say, like a toolbox of different analytical tools and different things that we use in programs that we have also created. For example, we have professional development program for universities, and depending on what they need, we decide to use different matrices or different all of these Excel tools, activities that we do with them to work with them in what they need. So it's also a very personalized approach. The tools, I mean, we have a lot of them in the group, and they are open if someone is interested in having a look at that.
All right. Any more questions? This microphone's not that attractive, but anyway.
So thank you for your presentation. Can you turn back to the previous, yes, this one. For me, it's interesting that in the left side, you have the innovations as the product for a real health, for a real process and real good. For example, some users or society, but right side, this is only on the process without understandable results.
I don't mean that one is excluding the other. I'm just adding this extra layer of understanding the relationships that happen here.
Okay,
so
this is understandable if
better.
This will be the way to reach that previous goals.
Yeah, and we also have to understand, or we should understand innovation not only as technology, as a product, but we can also understand that as social innovation.
This is more as interactions about
this
society.
Will be an extra layer that that could complement this, so we can understand the whole ecosystem better.
All right. Any more questions at this point? Yes.
I'm interested if you could share some insights about the communities that you probably did case studies on to gain in-depth understanding of these values of relationships or interactions, as you say. I'm interested in building a sustainable community here, so I'm really interested and happy to hear your findings about the strengths of relationships as a value that is now, valued in a different way than it used to be.
Okay.
So if you have any, specific communities in Germany or anywhere else that you looked at where you saw that this value of relationships has been one of the core reasons why this community has been developing so strongly.
Okay, this study was in Australia, so I focus in the clean technology industry in Australia, basically in the main nodes there, and I focus in the communities that are involved in technology development. So, for example, investors, researchers, government organizations, universities, SMEs. I didn't focus on communities, like social communities. So, and if you want, I can share with you my results, yeah.
The magic orange box is back. Anybody willing to have a try? Yes.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. I'm from Venezuela, so I'm a neighbor.
Good.
My question was, I mean, you mentioned transactional relationships and transitional, and I wanted to ask you, what do you think about transformational relationships?
Transformational, okay, I probably need to go a little bit into theory. Transformational is a very specific term that is used in leadership. So I didn't use those terms here because I didn't focus on leadership. And definitely with the transition, I used to the word transition because I'm talking about technological change. So that's what I'm saying, that as the process of, if you want to call it transformation.
I just want to add to what I mean by transformation. I mean, like, when I see that side of your page, what I read into it is that when we transform, let's say, a whole city, and we change the whole stack of technologies and rules and regulations and infrastructures and processes and uses and culture, at the same time, we are transforming towards a more sustainable future.
Yeah.
So I think this cannot be accomplished without that, and I call it transformational. So it's like you know, you can innovate layers and individual things, but it will not change reality. I mean, our reality continues to be polluting and destroying.
I think that's what I mean here. For me, that is here. It will be very interesting to see if these two together will have a different transformation impact. But so far, this is what I found.